Oh man, I'm about to have so much fun with this video. There is perhaps nothing out there more enjoyable than correcting misinformation. Especially when that misinformation comes from viable sources and overconfident Nintendo white knights in particular. So I have a general rule here. I don't normally ask you guys to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I don't ask you guys to hype my videos. But I do have an exception. When there is misinformation being spread around, I do request that we push these videos out for the public to see. This is a discussion that is currently sitting at the top of the r/Nintendo subreddit, which means it is currently the topic that is the most loved by Nintendo fans on their main subreddit. And we all know how Reddit works with Nintendo fans especially. Even the subreddits that are supposedly critical of Nintendo are actually major Switch 2 white knights whose idea of criticism of Nintendo is complaining that something costs so much while they have to buy it day one. That's Nintendo criticism on Reddit. But I wouldn't be making an entire video just to call out Reddit for being incorrect. NintendoLife.com has an article with the same subject. Again, is there a bigger Nintendo glazing website than NintendoLife.com? That's where they all congregate. MyNintendoNews.com, another very popular website that more often than not is used as a primary source for Switch 2 white knights. And likewise with NintendoEverything.com. It's also being discussed in some of the most popular forums that glaze and white knight for Nintendo like nobody could imagine, like Resetera.com. And of course, it's also prompting people to come to my channel and go to my old videos and make incorrect assessments about how my videos aged like milk. And I love when they do this. Now, the reason I am highlighting all of this is because these are all of the same outlets that incorrectly think that the Nintendo Switch 2 actually had a good holiday season. They're the same groups of individuals that think that the discounts that the Nintendo Switch 2 has seen all year were not because of slow sales. The same people that think that the only reason anybody makes videos against Nintendo is because they're PlayStation fans. They're the same ones that can't differentiate launches aligned for consoles when one of them, the Switch 2, is inevitably going to lead if you're looking at just the first 7 months because it's the first console to actually reach its holiday season. They're the same ones that completely ignore that every other console launch had stock limitations through most of its first year. And most importantly, they're the same ones that do not know the difference between what was shipped and what was sold. And their best rebuttal to the entirety of this video, as well as every other video, is simply to comment fastest selling console. And I'm sharing the sources and links of where they get their information from. Here's another one, NintendoWire.com. The sources of these information is important for me to put out there because they are the same ones that have been completely making and spreading completely false misinformation to try and paint the Nintendo Switch 2 in a much more positive light than it actually is, and it's what all of the Nintendo Switch 2 white knights have been grasping onto for months. So let's correct this misinformation. So currently, based off of the headlines and based off of the little snippets from this presentation, what people are assuming is that the sales for Sonic Racing CrossWorld only reached 1 million units actually sold by the end of this last quarter. And they all think that Sega is expecting to sell another 1 million copies of Sonic Racing CrossWorld through the 2027 fiscal year, which starts in March and goes on for another year beyond that. But for some reason, in most of these articles and most of the posts that are about this article, you have to scroll pretty far down to see somebody point out the truth, and everybody often ignores it. These articles that are being shared today, these posts about Sonic Racing CrossWorld failing to meet Sega's expectations, these are outdated articles. This was information that was made public back in November, early November, at the end of Q2. In fact, even on the source link that is being shared, you can see the website, uploads/pdf/english/ir/2025 11/7 Q2 presentation. What do you think 11/7 means? It's November 7th, Q2. So right now, a lot of this discussion has people assuming that Sonic Racing CrossWorlds is failing despite all of the Black Friday sales charts that it completely topped, or at least it was thereabouts in, and through most of December as well. And they also think this data includes Sonic Racing CrossWorlds being released on the Nintendo Switch 2, with so many confident people suggesting that it was never going to do well on the Nintendo Switch 2, because why would it do well on a console that has Mario Kart World? See, they've been waiting for this for a while. They've been waiting for an official way to say that Mario Kart World beat Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. Now, I've already made a video about this information, and I made it back in early December after the Game Awards. Feel free to watch that video after this if you'd like. But to give you a quick rundown, this game launched on September 25th. When this report was coming out, it was November 7th, so it was a little over a month. By then, it had reached 1 million units sold already. Now, Sonic and Shadow Generations had surpassed it. It did that 1 million within the first few days, if I'm not mistaken, which is part of the reason why this game failed to meet their initial expectations. But Sonic Racing CrossWorlds is the most expensive Sonic game to ever release. It was a spin-off title, and if you wanted the DLC, it was $90. It didn't even release yet on the brand new console that everybody wanted, and even until now, the physical version for the Nintendo Switch 2 has not come out yet. It's only digital right now if you want it on the Switch 2, and Nintendo consoles are often where the Sonic games do the best on. In fact, the Switch 1 version is doing phenomenal. So maybe it didn't meet their expectations for a launch title immediately, but we don't know at all how Sega feels about Sonic Racing CrossWorlds right now. In fact, we won't know until about 10 days from now, where we get the next financial report for Sega Sammy. And even when we get that information, nobody ever expects that Sonic Racing CrossWorlds would outsell Mario Kart World. I don't think I watched a single YouTube channel suggest that. In my video, I was probably the closest to saying it, and I didn't even say I think it would outsell it. I said it would be hilarious if this game outsold Mario Kart World, even though it realistically would not. But every other channel was like, no, this obviously is not going to outsell Mario Kart World. Nintendo fans will eat up Mario Kart World like it's nothing. But the expectation for Sonic Racing CrossWorlds should not be that it would outsell Mario Kart World. The expectation for people that enjoy Sonic Racing CrossWorlds, and there's a lot of people out there that do, is that it is a game that is better than Mario Kart World. And the sentiment online very much supports that. Tonight, if we're lucky when the Nintendo quarterlies come out, we will get some information about how well Kirby Air Riders has done this past quarter. Imagine it doesn't sell as much as Mario Kart World, and then somebody went out and made a video laughing at Kirby Air Riders, saying that it's terrible because it didn't sell as much as Mario Kart World. That's what this would be the equivalent of. And if anything, there should be more expectations on Kirby to do better than Sonic Racing CrossWorlds, because that is Kirby, a franchise that sells more than Sonic does. But in both Kirby and Sonic's case, it's a spin-off racer, where on a year where a Mario Kart game was released, and Mario Kart takes the crown for sales on all of this for the past 3 decades. Why would they even assume that it would outsell this game? Sonic Racing CrossWorld did not fail to meet Sega's expectations because it did not catch up to Mario Kart World. It performed very well when you consider the context, they just thought it would perform better. But there's also the added benefit when it comes to Sonic games. They knew when they were releasing it, the plan was always that by the holidays it would be about half the price, and that's what we just saw. It has been regularly in top charts on Circana, on sales in Europe, on Amazon bestseller charts, since November when this report came out. Although what's funny is people have been trying to shrug off Sonic Racing CrossWorld's success since the game launched because of petty console warring. The game launched, people immediately started talking about how poorly it sold in Japan in its first week, completely ignoring that Sonic in general does not perform well in Japan. He pretty much hasn't. Japan doesn't really care that much for Sonic, and they haven't for a very long time. And then after that, they started talking about the Steam charts and how well Sonic Racing CrossWorlds was doing on Steam in the concurrent players. But again, Sonic, kart racers, Steam, it's not its home base. You're basing it off of something that it doesn't usually perform that well on. Like, I'm not saying it's bad, it's good enough, but that's, again, just a single outlet of where people are playing it on. And it's often the lowest. I play this game on Steam. When I'm online, most of the other users don't have the PC icon next to their name. Most of them have the controller icon, and I'm willing to wager that most of those controllers are Nintendo controllers. And to add on to that even more, this game gained a decent amount of popularity in the Xbox and the PlayStation worlds. And the Xbox and PlayStation are very digital-heavy consoles. And they're also consoles that do not have a kart racer. So when something like Sonic Racing CrossWorlds drop, there would be a lot of excitement for them to pick up this game and play it. That's why it's making it into the Circana charts. They don't have a Mario Kart alternative. But for all the charts around the world that only show retail, whether those are European charts or even in Japan, many of those do not show digital sales. So Sonic Racing CrossWorlds is still ranking, maybe not on the top 10, but in the top 20, but it doesn't account for the fact that these charts do not include anything digital from PlayStation, from Xbox, and from Steam. The point is that it is way too soon to even make any kinds of assumptions about how well this game is doing. All we know is that prior to the Switch 2 digital release, and prior to this game having its massive price drop and discounts through a very healthy holiday season, while it was simply a spin-off Sonic title and the most expensive Sonic title at the same time, through its first month, it managed to sell 1 million units, which makes it second or third behind Frontiers and Shadow Generations, I think, as far as like the first month of a Sonic game goes in the past 20 years. And again, if you can watch my old video if you want a further breakdown on this. But this is the slide that everybody's sharing. This is directly from the slide in regards to the presentation from November 7th. It's highly acclaimed across each rating, sold over 1 million units worldwide. They expect long-term sales through continued provision of additional downloadable content and IP collaborations. This is very common for Sonic games. The expectation for Sonic games is that they have a much longer, healthy life after the initial launch because they always get a massive price drop. They're kind of an exception to the regular rule for most third-party games. They have an excellent tail in that they perform much better after their initial launch boost and after all the hype is there because, again, like within the first year, the games are usually half off and they're always regularly on discount through the rest of the console's life. And Sonic is a very recognizable mascot and makes for a very easy gift on pretty much every console, especially during the holiday seasons. This is very normal for them. The presenter goes on to say that we recently announced the worldwide cumulative sales have surpassed 1 million units. However, initial performance did not meet our expectations, and we are aiming to sell approximately another 1 million units within this fiscal year. So this isn't suggesting that the game is going to sell another 1 million units over the next year, which is what everybody is wrongfully assuming. This is saying that they expect to reach another 1 million by the time they hit March of 2026, which is in like a month and a half from now. And to put things into perspective, Sonic and Shadow Generations were released in October 25th, 2024. By the time they hit their February quarterly, it was at 2 million units sold. And that was basically a mainline 3D Sonic game that was universally praised, loved by all, only launched at $50, and had discounts through its first holiday season. And it's one of the most popular and recent best-selling Sonic games in like 20 years, and even that game from October through its first holiday season only managed to sell 2 million units. So Sonic Racing CrossWorlds might have not had as strong of a day one as Shadow Generations, and it might take one extra month to do it, but that's outside the holiday season anyway. But in both games' cases, by the time you get to February, they could very well likely both be sitting at 2 million units sold. And we don't even know that number yet because we have not reached the quarterly report that suggests that. There's a chance they might have not reached that additional 1 million. I find that unlikely because with the launch on the Switch 2, it's probably going to be picking up a lot of the slack since many people were waiting for it to be on there. And likewise, it's been an amazing turnout in the holiday season, topping all Western charts. Obviously not, when I say topping, I don't mean it was like number one, but it was up there. It was in the discussion for all of the charts online about best-selling during the holiday season. And all of this, and we have still yet to get the Switch 2 physical version released. And obviously, the Nintendo Switch 2 is a very physical, happy console, and it's one that's going to get the full game on a cartridge without a game keycard. So that's going to be coming up, and it's not even part of this discussion in 10 days, because it doesn't release till March. I don't know why all of a sudden there's all this news about Sonic Racing sales just blowing up online, going viral. But this is all information from November, and now people think that this game failed during the holiday season when it was selling at half the price and near the top of so many charts. The confidently incorrect sentiment behind so many of these comments is just downright hilarious. Gosh, like even as I'm making this video and I'm trying to research something else, GoNintendo joined into the mix. And sure enough, the first comment. Unfortunately, I think this is a case of Nintendo eating Sega's lunch with Mario Kart World releasing the same year. I feel like the same thing happened the year that Sonic Superstars and Super Mario Bros. Wonder came out in close proximity. Yeah, that did happen with Sonic Superstars and Mario Wonder. But Sonic Superstars was not nearly as popular of a game as Sonic Racing CrossWorlds was and is as it launched, nor was Super Mario Bros. Wonder as hated by the online community as Mario Kart World has been since its launch. These are two very different situations. And people are drawing conclusions based off of headlines that they are completely misinterpreting and completely misreading. And it's all thanks to these journalists that are just spreading this. And I think it's all because it randomly just popped up in first place on Reddit. Genuinely, I don't know why this randomly popped up and made the rounds. Like somebody tell me if they know. These documents were uploaded on December 4th. That's why I made my video on December 4th. Like, was somebody just snooping around trying to find something for Sega? Maybe they're like, oh, that quarter's ending. Let me see if Sega uploaded their IR information. And they clicked and they saw the presentation. They're like, this must be the most recent one because Nintendo's is coming out tonight. So they started to make news out of it? Genuinely, I have no idea why this is making the rounds right now. Even on like the same page, you scroll down, it tells you right here, February 13th, 2026, third quarter results announcement. You can't click on it. There's nothing there yet for this quarter. We don't know how well this game did in the holidays. All we know is that as of November 7th, the second quarter results, that's when the game had reached 1 million, and Sega expected it to do a little bit better. But I don't know how much more they expected it to actually do. I'm assuming if it hits 2 million by February, that's more than enough for them. And that's still a cause for celebration for Sonic fans. But there is just an insistence upon Nintendo fandom to beat down towards this thing just because it's like dares to challenge Mario Kart World, because they don't like competition. They cheer for Nintendo as they sue Pal World. So obviously, for Sonic Racing not selling as much as Mario Kart World, which it was never going to do, especially when you consider Mario Kart World was bundled with like 80% of all the Nintendo console sales. But even without that, it's freaking Mario Kart. There was never going to be a competition here. But I suppose in a year where everybody now looks at Nintendo fans as the meme of the gaming world, they seem to need some kind of way to pat themselves on the back so they can reaffirm their decision in supporting Nintendo, I guess. Anyway, yeah, this was actually not a planned upload, but I got another video coming tonight. And I will readdress the discussion about Sonic Racing CrossWorlds sales numbers in 10 days when we actually get the numbers that it did through this holiday season. Not because I think the game is going to have sold better than Mario Kart World, it may not even sell better than Kirby, but because this is the best kart racer of 2025 in my opinion, and I think many people share that opinion, so I'd like to actually have a level-headed point of view discussion on how well the game actually did in its first holiday season, instead of shrugging it off based off of outdated information from its first month of sales, and misleading so many people online to assume that the game has failed in its holiday season by randomly bringing in information from November before the game even came out on the Switch 2 and before it had any discounts. Which part of Sega's pricing strategy is always to have discounts. That's how they price their games. And that's even why I don't really care that much when they start their games off on a higher price of entry, because I know that they're going to discount it very quickly. And I even said it over and over again way back before the game even came out. I was like, if you guys don't like that early price point, this is the fee for early entry. By the holiday season, it will be significantly cheaper. And lo and behold, right now the game is significantly cheaper. It's the expectation of the customer when they go to the store. In Nintendo's case, they don't drop those prices, therefore it's more egregious when they start their games off at significantly higher price points. And that's why they deserve all of the hate and all of the backlash they get for their price points and their day one DLCs, whereas other companies do not, because I know that those prices are going to drop down for the most part. Still bad, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, clap for them because they charged at $70 and it sold 1 million units, that's annoying, but it's something that I can somewhat reluctantly accept because I know that price will go down within a couple of months. In any case, I probably have another video coming tonight. This one was unplanned, but I have another one that I'm currently working on and trying to wrap up either for a late upload tonight or maybe it'll be early morning tomorrow. In any case, thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you all on the next one.